inspiring, educating, and offering hope for families like yours. This is the Family Healing Room with Dr. Sonja Sutherland, a licensed counselor for 21 years and now a professor of counseling. Dr. Sonja wants you to know that your family can be stronger, your marriage can be peaceful and loving, and that safe, open, and enjoyable relationships with your sons or daughters is possible. And now, here's today's show.
All right. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Family Healing Room. I'm here with James and Holli Hawkins. Welcome, both of you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Glad you're here. I guess one question that I want to ask you is, when you received this invitation to join me on the Family Healing Room, what made you say yes to the invitation?
Well, I could tell by the invitation that we were talking about family. And I feel like that's the most visible and prominent subject right now that seems to be threatened by the things I'm seeing in my life and in the lives of my friends and their challenges as they're trying to raise the next generation. And so that intrigued me right away. And so I wanted to be a part and see if there's any way we could contribute.
Yeah. Holli, how about you?
I think bouncing off of what James was saying, because we've known you for years and we know your heart toward counseling and helping and being an example for people to better their lives. We just wanted to participate and be a part and see what we can actually give to that cause.
Well, I definitely appreciate that. And I know that many will benefit from the things that you have to say. I guess another question I have, James, is I know that you're in youth ministry. And as you see what you see around you, what are some of the examples that kind of give you concern about the state of the family?
I've worked with age groups from as young as 4 all the way to 18-year-olds. And the scary thing that I've observed is that parents are detaching at a very young age. They put their kids in different activities and then disconnect. And the kids that I have the opportunity to talk with, they ask me questions and then inform me that I wish I could talk to my dad like this, or I wish I could share this with my mom. Things of that nature. And it's just a blessing that the kids have a strong desire to connect, but it's kind of alarming to see that it's the parents that are participating in the disconnection.
Okay, so you're saying that one of the things that you've seen is just parents and children not really being able to communicate with each other and connect on interpersonal, emotional levels that kind of feed and grow and nurture that internal life for their children. Yeah. So it seems like then you and Holli probably have been able to further that or do that with your own children. Tell us about your family and what that has looked like in your family and how that has been able to grow and be strong.
Well, I had the benefit of being raised with a mom and a dad. A lot of my peers have not had that. There's either the mother, or if the father and mother are there, they're not in the same house. So you have 2 different perspectives of how life should be, and sometimes they don't match. But with us, we realized from our first counseling session before we got married that we have to be unified. If for not the kids, but for us, that we would survive and make the best of the blessing of having a spouse, that we would have to learn how to stop living as individuals that met each other and now live as one unit. And so we started this journey, and the huge blessing was studying God's word and learning how to have a relationship with him gave us the answers that we couldn't find anywhere else. We would have loved to be able to look down our family tree and see our parents and our grandparents and get that information. And we did get some, but how to be married and how to raise a family, we just guessed at it based on what we saw, what we remembered as kids but it wasn't really any instruction like, hey, when you become an adult, these are the things you're going to need to know. We didn't really get that. It was more of, I want you to be good. I want you to be successful, work hard.
Yeah.
And we had that, but there's a little bit more to that to be successful. So with us, I think one of the things that my pastor said to us when we first joined our church was, he said, every time I see you guys, you're always together. Do you ever spend any time apart? And we didn't realize that's the presentation that we were making, but it felt really good to know that if you saw one, you saw both. And it left the impression that we're on the same page. And so what we were working for was now manifesting in the front of people that we weren't consciously trying to do that. But that was the secret, I think, that got our foundation going, was that we had to be on the same page. And we had to learn to appreciate being on the same page versus being sufficient of ourselves as individuals.
And I think, if you don't mind me chiming in, that's something that evolves over time. You don't just wake up one morning and you're automatically there. That's actually learning to kind of put away your old habits, because, you know, when two people come together, they are individuals that come together as one, but we have had, you know, habits and thought processes and things that we were exposed to on our own that we have to come together and decide whether that works for our family unit or not. And I think what James did a really, really good job early on is leading our household in the things of God. And I think that because he was very passionate about his relationship with God, that it helped me to get on board as well. And, you know, we didn't always see eye to eye, but once we brought things back to the word, we really kind of had that, you know, common thread that kind of, you know, helped us to chime things out and make the right decisions. So I don't want people to think that, oh, they just were that way from day one. No, it was a, you know, work in progress. And as you, you know, grow, then, you know, as you know to do better, you should do better. So I think that's where we started. But the determining factor for us was, in the beginning, divorce wasn't an option and failure wasn't an option. So we kind of went from there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I guess what I'm hearing you say is your unifying force was your joint love for God. And everything then, the decisions you made, the arguments you got into, you went to that unifying point to kind of flesh out, okay, what do we need to do about this?
Exactly.
Okay.
All right.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That was our resolve.
Yeah. Yeah. And so I'm hearing you say that one thing you might recommend to couples and families is to find that unifying point. What is the one thing that is your common aspirational goal, thing that you both believe and that you both have in front of you, to say, this is what we want. We want to be faithful to God. And if this is what we want, here's how we need to go ahead and do it.
Yes, very much so.
Correct.
Yeah.
We found, I can tell personally, I found that it's an unspoken thing in many cases that people value who they were before they got married. And it's almost like a little fear that I might lose who I am for somebody I don't know who I'm going to become, connecting with this other person. And this is where God being in our life and his word giving us instruction and wisdom helped us to not be afraid to let go of the familiar, that the benefits of who we were to become far outweighed what we were as individuals. So we didn't feel like we were losing or giving up as much to not have to hold on to what I used to be. And so we kept the benefits of us being on the same page before us. So it always seemed to outweigh what rewards I had as an individual. To me, it's always been, hey, this is much more valuable. It's a lot better use of my time. And I find myself much more productive, not only to myself, but to my wife. And then when children came into the picture, I couldn't imagine doing it any other way. And for me, I learned how to be a better person by focusing on helping my children to understand what life's all about. And we started with, who is God? And is he real? And even though you can't see him, how can you verify that he does exist? And if he exists, then what does he want from me? And those kind of questions came in, and because God was on our side, the answers came to me. In many cases, I had no clue what I was really going to say, but being in this relationship with God, the answers came. And we found our children developing an attraction for things that we as adults didn't have an attraction for.
What do you mean?
Meaning, I didn't find out who God really was until I was like almost 29 years old. My son came to me at the age of 6 and said, "Daddy, I wanted to be saved." He was watching a cartoon show, and in the middle of the cartoon, he turned around to me while I was at work and said, "Dad, I want to be saved." And it kind of shocked me a little bit. And so I said, "Well, one day when you get older and you understand what that choice is, I'll be the one that's going to teach you." And he said, "No, Dad, I want to know now." I said, "You think you're ready now?" I was like trying everything I could to back out of, because I said, he's 6 years old. He can't know what this really means. And so I began to ask him questions, and surprisingly so, he was so on point with his desire to sincerely know that God is for me. And if what you're doing is because you love God, then I want to do the same thing. So I didn't realize he had been reading out of my actions that this is what having a relationship with God is like. And since I love my daddy, I want the same thing. And so then we start taking advantage of that. I became my son's hero.
And I think leading by example is so profound. And a lot of people go to, that old saying is do as I say and not as I do. And I think it was important to both James and I, but I know his leadership was, I'm not gonna participate in anything that I know is wrong for my children to participate in. So I'm not gonna drink, but tell them not to drink. I'm not gonna smoke and tell them not to smoke. I'm gonna be that living example so that it never comes back on me that I'm being hypocritical or I'm doing something that they are curious about. And then they get to the point where they're like, well, when I'm 18, I'm going to do this because my mom or my dad does this. So I think us being living examples has helped them understand that it's a conscious decision you make to do the right thing because it's the right thing. And then our biblical principles support that.
So how long have you guys been married? How many kids do you have? You've talked about them. How many do you have?
We've been married 29 years. It's 29 years this month.
Okay.
And we've been together 30 years. And we collectively have 3 children. We have 2 together, and he has an older daughter that I inherited upon marriage.
And how old are your children?
My youngest is 25. That's my daughter. My son is 27. And then my oldest daughter is 33, 32.
In her 30s.
Yeah, somewhere around there. She lives in another part of the United States, so we don't get to see each other that often. But we were very much together as she was a younger child. But she got older, got married to a nice guy in the military, and moved to Maryland.
Okay. So what would be an example of a time when things seemed to be going wrong? What was that like? And how did you get back on the same page? Because getting on the same page is not always easy.
Yes.
So, share. Of when you weren't on the same page and how you did it, how you got back there.
Okay, I'll start.
Okay, we probably have 2 different examples. Yeah. Mine was going to be about Joy and then going to Christian school.
Okay. Yeah, actually, when we first got started, when I met Holly, I was attracted to her because she was unique, and I saw her mentally. I was more attracted to her mentally than I was anything else. Of course, she's physically beautiful, but I loved her communication. Then the children came along, and we started kind of drifting apart, where I would work on the children, she would work on the children, but we started not focusing on our needs for each other because we were just throwing ourselves into the kids. And we didn't realize this. We just noticed that we were kind of not in sync as much until one day we kind of just woke up and realized, man, we're not talking to each other like we used to. And I'm not feeling her the way I used to. And the little thoughtful things that we used to do before we got married, they were kind of drifting away. And I didn't like that. And I felt like, man, I would be such a hypocrite if I learned how to minister to people in various stages of their life and I can't even help and listen to my wife. And so I think we realized that we needed to turn things around. And the thing that for me that was very instrumental was we submerged ourselves into a community of like-minded people. The people at our church, the friendships that were birthed out of that, all of the people were on the same page, headed in the same direction, trying to raise children in a world that was so contrary to where we really wanted to go. And we had so much in common. We really helped each other. I think that was, for me, that was huge. All of my family was in another part of the United States. So the only real family that I could cling to was the one that I had made, my wife and my children.
Mm-hmm.
And so we had to figure it out. And there was nobody else to turn to. And friendship became monumental for me. Guys that I could talk to and say, hey, this is how I'm feeling. Is it just me or is everybody else feeling this? And if somebody's doing better, hey, share with me what you're doing. And we did. We have some of the best people, of which you're one of them, that have sown into our life and have sown into our children as well. So
the other thing that I think that a lot of people, I don't know that they know exactly how to come to a happy medium or resolve. And when I was telling you that God's word kind of just, is the ultimate authority, is when our children were young and they were in public school, we had joined our church, which had a Christian school affiliated with it. And as I learned more about it, I had that desire for them to be in that atmosphere more so than the public sector. Not that they had experienced anything negative at that time, but I just had that desire. I saw, what our school and our church stood for, and I just wanted it to be reiterated from home to to their school. So anyway, I had presented that to James, and I think Julian was in the first grade and Jantel was in pre-K. And I remember specifically, and financially, we really couldn't afford it. But I remember presenting that to him and him saying, we both went to public school and turned out fine. Why are you, and we can't afford it. And he was telling, those were factual statements. But I specifically remember praying and asking God that for him to honor that, he would have to honor it by having my husband agree and something to manifest for him to actually change his mind. And lo and behold, I promise you, God came through strong, and I had no idea. So Julian experienced something at school that we had no idea he was going to experience. And when James went to go sign him out of school, he saw something that he was not very happy about. And as soon as we got back to the car, he said, go sign them up for Christian school. And from Julian's second grade year all the way through 12th grade, they both went to Christian school.
Wow.
So God made a way. He was a force that kind of brought us together and on the same page, as well as he was also where we had the vision, he made the provision.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And so it sounds like in that example, while you disagreed, the way that you decided to handle it was, we have this common faith, I'm going there, as opposed to arguing about it and it becoming a point of contention between you. You kind of let it rest until you felt like God made Eventually.
Yeah, let's keep it real.
Exactly.
She made a point quite visible, but it wasn't, we didn't argue about it. It was almost as if she understood where I was coming from, but she wanted to make me aware that this is what she wanted. And because I've always been crazy about her, even if I say no, but there's a part of me that's saying, okay, really? And so I guess it was just waiting for the right opportunity. And like she said, one day I went to pick Julian up from school, and I realized that I couldn't control that environment that he was in at all. And they were making deposits into his understanding that I couldn't handle. I would have to work too hard at being a parent if I was going to overcome that environment. And so we did. We made the decision that this is how we want, this is what we believe God wants for our children. And then when we realized that it's going to take some sacrifice to put them in private school, in a Christian school, to reinforce what we really want them to get. See, we realized this. Eventually, these kids have to go out and engage the world that we live in. So the best place to do is start with them when they're really young, so that the first thing they believe is mom and dad and God, versus just sticking them out there where everybody has access to their ears. And then when the fires show up, then we start working hard to try to overcome fires. We didn't want to do that.
Yeah.
So it was laying the foundation as soon as we could. And so we made up our mind, they may not be in private school forever, but it was worth making the investment to put them in. And I'm not saying every private school. I believe it had to be a school that you can say they support the ideals and the habits and the way of thinking that goes on in my home. And we found that in our church. And we went from there.
Gotcha. You spoke earlier about the disconnect between parents and children that you've seen in the work that you've done. How did you maintain positive and open connection with your kids over the years?
I'm not sure if I can verbalize this, but I'll try. I realize this, the Bible says this: how a man thinks in his heart, that's what he'll be. So it didn't say what's thinking in your head, it's about what goes on your heart. So I realized the best thing I could ever do is have some understanding of what my children are thinking, rather than just only observe what they're doing. And so at a very early age, for them, I learned to sit still and listen to them. And I never, even when they sounded silly and stupid, I didn't just say, hey, no, that's not right. We didn't go there. I knew they had to know daddy was listening and that daddy was there. And so one critical moment seems to happen in all of their lives where they finally make that connection that, hey man, our dad is amazing. And one that in mine in particular stood out was when Julian started being interested in a girl for the first time. And this young lady who was paying attention to him all of a sudden decided, I want to go some other way. And it broke Julian's heart. And he came to me and said, Dad, I don't think she wants anything to do with me anymore. I said, really? So I gave him some advice and I said, okay, she'll be back. This is how you should navigate. He said, Dad, no, she's not like that. I said, trust Daddy. He said, okay, I'll do whatever you say. So he did, things worked out. And when that young lady came back and it was now paying him attention, he came back to me and said, Dad, guess what? She's paying attention again. And at that moment, I could see in his eyes, I was more than just his dad. I was the man. And even now, he's 27 years old. And his friends will ask him questions like, do you run everything by your dad? He said, yeah. And it's because I give him the ability to be himself while he learns to trust me, not because he has to, but because he realizes that Daddy is a wise man. And I can trust him because our relationship is right. And it just has worked that way. And it's been the same way for my daughter. She went through something very similar in a little different direction, but it's the same thing. There are critical moments in their life that you have to be more than just a parent. You have to be somebody that they would turn to, even if you weren't their parent. And thank God when those moments presented themselves, I was ready, I was there. And how as well. When I say I mean it's really us. A lot of the opportunities that presented themselves would not have presented them if she hadn't been there on the other side.
So say more about that, Holly.
Well, I think that, you know, when we look at our relationship, where I'm strong, he may be a little weaker, and where I'm weak, he's definitely strong. So we make a real powerful, you know, unified force. So I think in reference to James actually did a lot of the teaching and talking to the children when they were younger. I did less of that. I did more of the provisionary things, the mothering things. So I look at them now, we have a very good, amicable relationship with both of them, and they still come to each of us for their select things. But Jantel being, you know, all the way across country, she'll call and we'll just chit chat. So we're friends, but it's still friends with that, you know, advisory type of, you know, or counsel type of interaction.
Mm-hmm.
So I think we've always allowed the open door for you can come to us for anything. And now that they're young adults and having to navigate this, you know, life as young adults, they, you know, they share things with us. They run things by us, whether it be financial, whether it be social, whether it be even, you know, spiritual, you know, making decisions as far as, you know, work and, you know, job related things like that. So we really have a good, open, you know, communication for the most part.
Yeah.
And I think it's birthed out of it starting, like James said, at a very early age.
Do you want peace in your family relationships instead of conflict? Do you want a safe, loving marriage instead of one that is failing? Are you troubled about what's happening with your children and need help for them? At Legacy Changers Counseling Centers, the goal is to strengthen individuals and families with cutting-edge emotional and mental health interventions. The exceptionally trained counselors at Legacy provide the specialized guidance you need in a safe environment of belonging so that you can make the life changes you and your loved ones need. Get real help for your emotional and relationship needs. Call today at 404-334-7575. That's 404-334-7575. You can also find us on the web at legacychangerscounseling.com. Call now and transform your life today. 404-334-7575 or legacychangerscounseling.com.
Mm-hmm.
My son actually takes pride in saying, I never lied to my dad. That's huge in my book.
It is huge.
Because I thought that was a part of life. You know, you can't share everything with your parents. You can't, you know, there's some stuff you're going to do they don't really want to know anyway. At least that's how I was thinking. But somehow with the total package, he developed a value in saying my word is more valuable. And if I never have to lie, then I'm in a real good place with my dad. And that's it.
And that's not to say that he's always made the perfect or the right decisions, but even throughout that, he's been able to come to one of us, and primarily James, and say, I missed it, or I didn't make the decision that you would have preferred me to make, but I realize it now.
Mm-hmm.
I think the fact that, you know, he can redeem himself by coming back and, you know, correcting something, it's helped.
He can redeem himself by coming back and correcting something.
Yes, in reference to him making a decision, because he's always known our stance on, you know, different aspects of life. There's never been any, you know, mysterious thoughts. I think he kind of knows our stance on most areas of life. But if he's ever made a decision that he was, you know, off in college and he knew, he's like, Mom and Dad probably wouldn't agree with this, but I'm going to make this decision anyway. You know, he'll come back to us later on and admit that he made this decision versus what he knows we would have made. He usually apologizes, and, you know, and sometimes he even, you know, solidifies why he thought at that point in time that was the right or decision that he, you know, should have made. But he realizes that at the end of the day, all we want is for him to have the best life that he can have with little friction, little, you know. So I think he knows our ultimate goals are for him to succeed in every area with as little hurdles as possible.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So I guess my final question is, you know, if you had a parent pose this question, I hear how the relationship is now with your children. My relationship with my children is the complete opposite. You know, they don't come to me, they don't confide in me, and I'm having a hard time figuring out the steps I really need to take to show my child that the relationship I would like to offer them is different.
Mhm.
What would you say to them were the steps that you took to make it different, to make it what you wanted it to be, so that it looks like it does now?
Well, as you probably have heard reverberated most of our conversation, we really depend on God leading us and helping us. I really believe that everything that God wanted us and needed for us to have, it's already in place. The question is whether we'll see it, we'll pick up on it, we'll be aware of it. And so I will tell you that as a parent, we want to be the one that your children say, I have a great parent. But sometimes we want that so much that we develop pride and don't accept outside help. I've had the real blessing of have other men talk to my son. And it didn't bother me because I knew them, they knew me, we were on the same page, and it helped my son to hear it from somebody else. So one principle is be aware of your community. And if you have a relationship with God, I promise you, there is somebody else that will help you get implant in your child the right way of thinking. You're not in this alone. I will tell you that God loved us so much that he wouldn't leave us alone when we're facing these challenges. But sometimes because of pride, a lot of times it's pride that I need to be the one, or pride that I don't want anybody to see I'm messing up, or I'm not doing everything I need. If we could get rid of the pride, realize that God has provided for every need that we have. We just need to open our eyes and relax and stop sweating when the challenges present themselves. We'll find that there's supply there. And the other thing is, don't always be the person who feel they have to have all the answers. That's not the most important thing. The most important thing to me in children is that you're there. Not that you will be there, but that you're there. Every game, every practice, I've always been there. It was either that Holly myself together, or one of us, but we were always there. We made up our mind they would never be in a game or participating in a play and not have representation. And then when it's over, have somebody you can talk to and say, how did I do? You know, being there is important. And it's even more important than having all the right answers, just being there. And I guarantee you, if you can swallow the pride and be present in the moments, the answers will come to both of you and your child.
And I think that we would even do things like children have a tendency to want their own space in their, seclusion. So they'll go in their room. And we, sometimes just go in their room and sit on their bed with them, So it's like, okay, well, you can leave us, but, we're following you. And after a while, they realize, wow, this is kind of cool, because now we're coming in their space where, wanting to be in their, in their bubble. So I think that they started to appreciate that. And, we would just hang out. Sometimes we, talk about, nothing. Sometimes we would, watch a show, play a game, or just, I think, to converse at their level. And so it's not always us dictating or chastising or teaching, but just kind of meeting them where they are. I think makes a lot of the difference too. And that's what children, they want to be wanted, want to be loved, and they actually need discipline, but it's about approaching it the right way.
Yeah.
I'll tell you that one of the things that was really beneficial for our daughter, we used to do role plays. Instead of just telling her the do's and don'ts of relationships, we would do in the kitchen, would do role plays. I would act like I met my wife for the first time. I'd walk up and say, honey, how about that number or something like that? And they would have such a kick out of it, but it would give us a platform to kind of let them see, here's what you're going to see when you go out in the world. And so my daughter, she is the more theatrical kind, so she really appreciated it. And she would even ask for it at times. And so now that she's at this stage of life where she's doing things on her own, she literally would call from California and say, hey, Dad, hey, what do you think about this? This guy said this to me. What do you think? And she really wants to hear what I'm saying, but not from the place of, let me give you all the rules of dating, but Dad, let me share with you this experience. And then if she wants my advice, she asks for it. I don't force it. She asks for it. And I mean, this is the most treasured thing that we have is that they have that relationship with us. They want it. Like my son now, he's 27 years old. I don't know another kid like him. He'll come home after being away from a long time, and I can't get rid of him. If I go in my office, he'll follow me and just sit there. Won't have anything to say. He's just there. And if I leave to go downstairs, he'll come follow me. He'll lay right. He just wants to be there. And I like that feeling because it lets me know that he's going to carry that into his next relationship. One day he'll get married, and it'll be a natural thing to be connected to the ones you're with, rather than everybody's going in all the different directions to school, to work, and then we eating at different times and all that. That's going to be foreign for him. But I think it really gives him an opportunity to really be successful at duplicating and even improving on what we have presented to him as a family.
Awesome. Awesome. Is there any final thing that you would want to say to couples or families listening to this recording?
Well, I'd say it's never too late and never give up. And love on your children, love on your family members, because I mean, those are the most cherishable times. You can't get back forsaking opportunities. So I think that if we, just love on one another and really see the value of family and, the unit that covers a lot of things, that rectifies a lot of issues.
Yeah. And I would say it's easy to see that with social media in place right now, it's causing children to be more individualized instead of a part of a community. People they would rather sit there alone in their phone than to be in the presence of the person they're talking to. And because of that, it is unconsciously creating an environment that's not connected. They don't really understand what family is. To them, family is leaving me alone while I go in my bedroom and get on my cell phone.
Mm-hmm.
So what Holli was saying is 100% important, and that is be with them and be in them. I mean, a lot of people think they are loving their kids by giving them the things they want because they can't be there. And I really believe that the intent is good, but you'll never give anything greater value than yourself. And that's what I would say. And like she said, it's never too late. My oldest daughter, because she was raised in a divided home, I had her in my younger years, but as she got older and moved into her teenage years, she kind of drifted away because she wanted to do things that wasn't allowed in my home, but it was allowed in her mom's home. And it was hard for me because I would hear she would disconnect. Sometimes I saw a little disrespect. And Holli, even though she's not her blood mother, was the one that said, hey, be patient, just wait, it'll come around. And so we went through many years like that. And there are plenty of times, honestly, I said, look, I'll be here when she needs me, but I'm giving up. There was really times I was going to say that. I did say it to her. And she said, no, you can't do that. And now she calls me every week. We talk, good conversation. And she's very proud to have a daddy like me. And I'm very proud to have a daughter like her. She's changed. God came into her life and made huge changes. And if I had given up after 20 years of abuse, I'd have never seen the last 10 years that have been excellent. So I'll tell you, it's never too late. Don't give up, even no matter what it looks like. Love never fails. It doesn't.
Awesome. Thank you again for joining me on the Family Healing Room. And I'm excited that when folks hear what you have to say, that it will be really helpful for them. I wish you the best of luck in your future family relationships. The best of luck for your children, wherever they are.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Hello, everyone. This is Dr. Sutherland. Thanks for listening today, and I hope you'll join us again at this same time next week. If this information has been helpful, like us and share on Facebook at Legacy Changers Worldwide. You can also find other shows and resources to strengthen your mental health and family wellness at www.legacychangersworldwide.com and by subscribing to Dr. Sonja Sutherland on YouTube. I'm in your corner and always hoping the best for you. I'll see you next week.